Hello, lifelong learners. Well, let me position myself comfortably. I am Agassi, and this is the 100 Languages Atelier. And today, I'm sitting on the floor of my bedroom, rightly so, because the focus of today's session is environments. We're going to look at socially distant environments, environments of the new normal, and see and explore the elements that will affect them now that we come back to the schools of post-COVID-19 reality. Okay, we're going to look at 5 factors today. We're going to unpack time, we're going to unpack different spaces and how spaces of our classrooms are going to change in the new normal. We're going to look at resources, access to resources, making them safe for our kids. We're going to look at the flow, slow flow, fast flow, well, who knows, of our classrooms in the new normal. And last but certainly not least, we're going to look at the model. Maybe it's a flipped model, blended model, who knows? Let's see what's out there, what I've been reading on, what's the research. Let's suggest some discussion lines and prompts, okay? Let's get the show on the road. So environments in the socially distant classrooms are not the environments we've just left when we moved into distance learning. We're going to see huge differences around the way we shape breakout spaces, around the way we distribute resources, around the time it takes children to go from one point of the classroom, one point of the school to the other point of the school. As one, we're looking at social distancing, which means our kids cannot be clustered. Kids and adults in our schools and campuses cannot stay in very crowded spaces together. They have to keep their physical distance and social distancing. Although I want to warn you against using just that term alone with parents, with the stakeholders in your community. Make a clear difference between being social and being physically distant, right? However, very often when we say socially distant, that means maybe no relationships. Relationships are still key. We're staying in our safety bubble, yet we are very, very much connected. We want our children, we want adults to still stay in very strong relationships. Okay. What about that environment? Let's begin. Time. When it comes to time, you're going to have to readjust everything you do and grow very, very patient. As the kids pick up their water bottles in the classroom, as they line up to transition to another class, you're going to have them line up at spaces of at least 1 to 2 meters apart, and then wait for them to go to the next space. As they line up for water bottles, this may take some time as they pick up their books from their cubbies, or they're willing to pick up another element of a manipulative or resource. We're going to come to that element in a while. You're going to have to distribute those and send them to pick up these items 2, 3, or 4 children at a time so that they can keep appropriate distance from one another. So that time will considerably affect your time of the classroom and of the instruction spent on in the classroom. You will be looking at lessons that will have an intro routine, which is much longer than usual, an outro or an exit transition to another class or another part of the lesson that is going to be much, much longer than usual. How will you allow yourself for that time? How will you change your schedule to make sure that children have an adequate time to move from space to space, that teachers have enough time, especially single subject specialists, to prepare from one class for the safe entry of another group of children into their classroom. So time is very important, and that's something that needs to be considered and reflected in our schedules and definitely reflected in our routines in the classroom for the safety of our colleagues and ourselves. Number 2, we're looking at the physical space of our classroom. If you had carpet meetings, well, I don't think that's something that's going to run very smoothly right now. How else can you start your day? How else can you run a morning meeting with your classroom where you know children and adults need to stay at least 1 meter apart from one another? Buying floor stickers, that's the first option. A lot of schools are currently mapping their floors of their classrooms, shared spaces, mapping their desks with stickers, creating safe points. Somewhere on the floor where a child can stick, there is a green sticker or a red sticker, depending on the school's color code, indicating this is a safe space for you to sit. And there is another sticker just like that on the other part of the carpet or the other part of a reading area or a shared area or a table, but that sticker is 1 meter apart. So looking at those spaces, looking at spaces that normally were shared in a flexible manner by all the children, breakout spaces, Lego block building spaces. Maybe there are tubs of toys or manipulatives or mini library in your classroom or book corner. These areas also need to be rebranded and reimagined so as to make sure that children are not taking resources easily and putting them off without really thinking about health and hygiene and their safety. So we are slowing down. So that's the first consideration, that was time. And two, now in the spaces we're in, we're making sure that our adjustments are done so that we're staying 1 meter apart from one another. Number three, resources. I've mentioned a little bit about resources already in spaces. The important part is that we need to be healthy and hygienic about how we keep and maintain our resources. So if you're using things that are predominantly plastic-based or metal-based or glass-based or wood-based in Regio classrooms, for example, so not so much plastic, you're going to have to be very creative in how you deep clean or sanitize those things. It will have to happen more than once a day, because as you know, little hands in Regio classrooms or even a little older hands in KG and up or grade 1 and up classrooms, math manipulatives, blocks, magnetic letters, construction supplies, everything that the kids would normally use when they play, inquire, and learn, all of these things can be contaminated and they will need cleaning. So how to go about distributing resources? First and foremost, think of co-sharing, which means we don't have one big lot, one big shelf of communal resources that everyone would go into flexibly whenever they please or whenever the experiences, learning engagements needed a manipulative or a resource. Co-sharing is not exactly sharing everything at the same time. It means that we have a pool of resources. We're now from that pool distributing packs of, okay, this is a group of 4 children and for today they might need these math manipulatives, these literacy manipulatives, these particular writing and stationery resources. We can stock up a tray with it, put it at the center of their desk for the day. We can stock up a trolley, an IKEA trolley, for example. This is not a brand placement, although if you can see Calex City here, very much so. I'm an IKEA enthusiast. But we're looking at different solutions. So it's either a trolley or a tray, and that has the supplies for the day, for the week, for that group of children. And the children are responsible for maintaining these materials. It's important that they grow that sense of responsibility, self-management, so approaches to learning skills, lifelong skills, that they look after the resources in their care, and through that, they look after their own health and safety and the health and safety of their entire group. Okay, so we've looked at time, we're slowing down, spaces, we're being smart how we position kids apart from one another in the classroom. Floor is still great, but just make sure there's a sticker or there's a little mat indicating where's the space distance to sit away from another child. Third, we looked at the resources that we need to make sure we sanitize, we keep very clean, we regularly check and wipe down for the next group to come into a single subject classroom or for the next day. And now we're on to our flow. And as I said in the beginning, slow flow, fast flow. Well, now as we've looked at time, the reflection is it's a slow flow. Our classrooms are going to slow down. And I see that as an amazing opportunity. Our lives need to slow down. We live in such a fast-paced society these days. Slowing down can only do us some good. I think this is an amazing opportunity for children to practice mindfulness, for us to focus on how we do things, why we do things, why we appreciate things, and show gratitude for the things we have. Up until COVID-19, we have taken so many things for granted. I think that part of our curriculum, children looking at appreciation, gratitude, kindness to one another, even kindness towards people that provide these clean environments for them, which are the cleaners, help and safety staff, facilities, logistics, just growing that sense of a slower community where everyone looks after one another. So that flow of our classrooms and daily rotations between stations, single subjects, parts of the campus, we are slowing down. It's a slow flow. And last but certainly not the least, we're looking at flipped classrooms or blended learning models, which means some parts of our campuses may be open for some groups of children, while others may still remain closed to lower the initial numbers of children coming back into school. In that respect, it's great, but how can we best support children that are not yet at school? Well, we're still continuing with the distance learning model. A lot of schools will be looking at that flipped model I just mentioned, where some of that time is done online, the other days are done in the classroom situation. How do we maintain that? You're a one teacher running the same curriculum, but in two different versions. One, elements of the online learning where you can provide inspiration to children, provocations, invitations to independent inquiry, inspire and provoke. And then the other part, more practical part, more experiential part, is when the school are with you on the campus. And these are the checks and balances that you need to discuss with your classroom team, with your colleagues, and see which parts can be done online. As I said, for me, that would be the provocations, some invitations to learning, to further personal inquiries, questioning, wondering. And then while being on campus and having access to those resources not every child may necessarily have at home, then we support our children in being more experiential, in touching and tugging and playing, and obviously using those safe resources and hygienic resources, wiping whatever we've tugged and cleaning whatever we've touched. So the slow flow again, but doing that at school, knowing that we have those resources at our kiddos' disposal. So today we've looked at environments, and environment is such an incredibly important part because it's our third teacher. Environment supports us as teachers in our classroom, so it's really key that we look at how we support ourselves through creating those new safe environments of the new normal of the socially distant classrooms. In the next session, I'm going to be talking about precisely what types of resources would support us and support our teaching and learning practices so that we don't go bonkers while wiping everything down and we become a little bit more sustainable in our classrooms. But for today, the focus was resources. If this is the first session you joined, you might want to go back to session number 1, where we talked about just setting the time for transition and how important the process of transition with your community is. I hope you enjoyed us talking about time. I hope you enjoyed us talking about environments. And now, go and act. Do something, talk to someone, write something up, either share it on Twitter, share it on Instagram, share it with your community, but go and act. I hope you can take that as a call to action. Okay, so if you've learned something new and you'd like to document your learning and share your learning with your colleagues at school or in your learning community, don't be shy. Go to the100languages.com and grab your own PDF copy summary of it. It's an infographic. There's a JPEG. There is a PDF. There are links and resources from the previous sessions as well. For every of the sessions on YouTube, there is always an infographic that I push out so you guys can share and document your learning with your colleagues and refer to it in your conversations at school and your professional learning community. Thank you.